everyone, and welcome back to Get Uplifted. We are in a new year. It is 2021, and I am here with Christy Tagatac, the creator of Create Safely and PotKITbook, and we are so excited to bring her on today. Christy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. I'm so good because I'm here with you today. So I'm really excited.
I'm so
It's been
grateful to
like
have you.
what, like a year? I mean, we feel like we've met a year ago and we're finally through talking through DM, we're finally here, like face to face. It's
It's
amazing.
happening. I'm so excited. And I've joined so many of your amazing Zoom classes and Zoom conferences with all these amazing artists that you have brought together. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you on, was to kind of talk about your journey and how you got started with Create Safely. And I mean, just the community alone that you have built with Create Safely is just absolutely incredible. And I just love to hear how you came up with everything.
Thank you. Thank you. So wow. Okay, so it's so crazy because I think to sum up that question, because it's really loaded for me because in that short amount of time, I I mean, it really happened like overnight. Um, but the journey prior was years. I mean, years of being in makeup for 20 years and then always loving mentoring and helping and grooming and whatever I can do to help people, not even just in makeup, but that's really where the journey started because it was part of me. And when fast forward, I mean, obviously, I'm not sure if you know this already, you probably do, but I'm a makeup artist and a licensed cosmetologist. And a lot of my background in the last 5 years has been cosmetology education. So I had the opportunity to pause at my career working with a cosmetic company for 16 years to venture into cosmetology. And that's when I got my license because I wanted to educate. And in California, and I don't know if it's the same in New York, you have to have a license to pursue owning a school or owning a salon. And my goal was to create a salon environment to do hair, but also to provide education. And I'm sharing this with you because that's where a lot of this background came in, which built the platform of Create Safely. Because as you know, it's education through community. So anyhow, fast forward, I met some incredible people in my journey through makeup and through hair, and was able to create makeup curriculum pre-COVID that was supposed to launch in a chain of studio salons. So you know that concept like Salon Republic and Sola sessions. So that was going to be my next step, was to roll out this curriculum that included infection control, because all the curriculum I created when I was in cosmetology, to to go back, I created makeup curriculum and trained beauty professionals and educators and future professionals all over the country in cosmetology school. Because as you know, in cosmetology school, makeup isn't a huge focus because it's mainly hair. So like we all know now, makeup in general doesn't have a lot of guidelines and regulations, right?
Mhm.
So what was really great is I took that experience in cosmetology, writing curriculum, and then my 16 years of working for a cosmetic brand that focused on hygiene. And I'll say it's MAC Cosmetics. I worked for them for 16 years, and they literally laid the foundation for me in terms of hygiene and sanitation. So when we went to lockdown, I had to, I mean, I lost everything, Nicole. I lost my salon. Um, Obviously, you know, we're both signed. I was signed at the time, but my agency actually, unfortunately, had to close its doors in October. But there wasn't any work. Everything just went on pause. And so I think, like many of us around the world, we were like trying to figure it out. Like, what are we going to do? Am I going to work again? Um, how am I going to do it safely? And I think
Mhm.
for me, it was really heightened because of the education background and trying to, and knowing like, how do we do this and how do we do it safely? So I just got to work and I was like, I have to, I mean, I was in grieving for probably 3 weeks. And then April came and the cosmetology schools that I had the opportunity of working with reached out to me to do some mentoring via Zoom. And that's when I created and pivoted into infection control and providing hope for this future generation.
Mhm.
So through my own network, I was helping my friends that are makeup artists and hairstylists and groomers. They were asking me because they know my background, like, Chrissy, what do I do? Like, how do I get my kit ready? And so it just happened naturally. And then I just saw so many, to be honest, so there's so many companies out there. For me, it seemed like a lot. There were probably only a handful that were just sharing information and saying that you had to have certain products, you had to have certain certifications in order to execute your career and actually like pursue your career. You had to have these certain things in order to do what you loved.
Mhm.
And for me, I was like, that doesn't, it's not promoting and uplifting and elevating our industry that's already suffering, you
Yeah.
know? So I wanted to provide a platform that had free resources and that united our industry, because there was such a huge division I felt in terms of what I saw on social media, you know?
Yes.
And so I brought education through community, and I just literally had one post and I said, this is what I'm about. I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to be sponsored. I just want to help. And I want us to all help each other because there's so many of us around the world, you know,
So true. Around the world.
around the world. And you figure, I think a lot of us were like, this is only happening here. It's only
Mhm.
happening in my city, my state. And
Yeah.
it's no, guys, it's happening everywhere. And every part of the world has different regulations. They have different resources. Some don't have any. And
Mhm.
um, fast forward into almost this year and this journey of just connecting with artists and connecting other artists with each other, I feel like it's not only rewarding, but it's rewarding, I think, for the community that's a part of it, because they feel like they have a sense of purpose,
Mhm.
and I'm giving them that voice that I think is lacking in our industry sometimes. Um, and you know what I mean? Our industry can be a little dark at sometimes,
Yes.
because it's competitive, you know, like any industry. But I think in particularly ours, it's definitely there needs to be a little bit more community, I feel personally,
Yes.
you know.
I totally agree. And that's why I feel like I connected so much with you, just because, I mean, from the experiences that I've experienced in the communities, I had not found one that, okay, let me back up on that one for a sec. There
Yeah.
were so many different communities out there, but there was none that was building community like you were. I feel like I've been a part of makeup groups that are, here to support one another, but no one is doing that in those groups. And there's just nasty things being said on Facebook. And I honestly have like removed myself for almost all makeup groups. And when I saw the community that you were building with Create Safely, I was immediately attracted because it was artists supporting artists, and it wasn't about like who you are or where you are. It was like an even playing field. Let's all help each other. And I know that it was like during the pandemic, we were all just like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we even start with? And I remember seeing your Create Safely content, and I felt like there was, like you said, hope. It was like hope that there was going to be work coming back, hope that there was a way to be sanitizing. And it also gave us something to start working on at home and our kits while we could. It was like the only thing we could control. And we were all just looking for information. And you guys were the first to like get it out there, but also transform and evolve as we learned more about the pandemic and coronavirus and what exactly it was. But I mean, just the resources you have provided from the start to even now is just, it's it's amazing. It's amazing what you've been doing. And just, I mean, it just shows of like who you are as a person and the kind of community you want to serve and work in and educate. And I just think it just speaks volumes about you and your values and everything you stand for.
So much. Thank you. I thank you for that. Because sometimes I feel like, I think going back to all the different platforms that you and a lot of people experienced during the pandemic, because everyone was really emotional.
Yes.
So it was hard to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. So there's a lot of banter of, like, we wanted to vent. And you're right, there weren't a lot of platforms that were just expressing positivity and hope. And I felt like there was a need and I wanted to create it. So thank you for sharing that with me, because I'm like, are people really getting anything out of this? Are they, because at the end of the day, who am I? You know what I mean? I always go through this because, you know, it's about trust and trusting your fellow colleague or your fellow person, you're human.
Yeah.
If you see someone sharing information that is leading with love first, which I'm a true believer in that, it doesn't matter who you are or how many followers you have. It's a true testament that people will connect with you if you have your heart here in the right place.
Yes, I agree. And there's so many people who, I mean, I don't want to call anyone out, but there's so many people who don't come from a place of, leading from a place of love or serving others or looking to support each other. And I think that that's why you and your brand for Create Safely stood out so much, because it was just so much higher than all the other levels of community that I've experienced. And that's why I reached out to you ASAP, because I was like, I love everything you're doing. And you could just feel the love. And that's so rare sometimes. And I mean, a lot of makeup communities and competitive industries and anything, it's obviously other than makeup as well. So having a platform and a space to learn, educate, and also create community, I mean, it's just incredible. I can't say it enough. I'm like, I just love everything that you're doing. I'm a big fan.
Thank you so much. And I feel the love from you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'm just so happy we connected. And I am kind of curious about how the PotKITbook came about during all of this as well.
Sure. Well, everyone that's asked me this, because I've always wanted to create something. So when I left Mac, this was, gosh, I think 70 years ago now. And that was a hard decision for me, because that was a company that I was born and raised with. It really established the values that I have, and the background in business that I have. So I always knew that at some point in my life that I wanted to create a product. And then going into cosmetology school and my background there, I always wanted to develop something that would help artists be organized, save time, work more efficiently, and create safely. Now, at the time, like, the word create safely wasn't anything that I was thinking about in terms of what I was going to do in the future with the pandemic, but it literally took a pandemic for me to be like, okay, Christy, you really need to find something to help artists create something to help them, because there were so many people that were having no choice to go out and work, even when we were shut down. The reality is people needed to make money.
Yeah.
And there weren't a lot of kit resources that would help them do that effectively and be able to come home and have a peace of mind that they could clean what their kit looked like, So through my own testing, I was doing all of this while I was creating Create Safely, trying to figure things out. I was like a jewelry maker.
I love it.
Putting things together and piecing things together, and then everything was just aligning the way that, I don't know, it was, and I think we were in Mercury in retrograde during that time too.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny what can come about?
I know. So, but the energy was aligning with me. And when I say aligning, manufacturers were lining up with me, everything, like through the trademarking, and it just all happened like naturally. And then I launched it, and it just, people really, I mean, they're makeup artists like me. So I was thinking from a makeup artist and hairstylist perspective, like, this tool is going to help people. And I was really happy that I was able to fill in a gap that was kind of missing in the PotKITbook.
Honestly, your PotKITbook is incredible. I am so obsessed, just because it's so quick and easy to clean, grab, find everything. You can organize it and label it. But also I love that, like you said, it's made for hair and makeup. And like, I have like a grooming one, and I have a makeup one, and I have a hair one, and it just keeps everything so neat and tidy that I feel like I'm showing up, I'm prepared, but also know that I'm being safe and everything feels clean. And even when I bring it home, I know I can just wipe it down real quick and do all of that. And even just bringing it back into my own house, I feel so safe with it. And I love it. It's incredible.
Thank you so much. And I just feel like too, I wanted something that looked aesthetically cool too.
Yes.
And I just feel like I had this long conversation with a makeup artist, and we talk about presentation, because that's really like, we're like, bam, like, this is our kit. And it's like, because you're trying to create your salon environment in a hotel or like in the corner of a studio. Yes. And you do that through your makeup products, your brands. And so when COVID hit, I was like, now that everything was going to be covered up, I was like, that was the other thing I had in mind too, is like, how are we going to create a wow factor with our kit again? Because I knew that best practices would be that you would have to keep your stuff in your kit.
Mhm.
So I wanted to also create something that looked cool, you know?
Yeah,
And I
it
feel like
really
it,
does.
yeah, like, cause you can stand them up and like,
And
it's
all the
just,
different colors and like the
yeah.
iridescent ones, like all of them are just so, they're just so pleasing to the eye. Like I just love looking at anytime I even like shock myself. I'm like, how organized I am.
I
Like
know.
when I have them, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well,
Literally.
well, you know what's really, it's so crazy because recently, because the pocketbook was meant for everybody. I
Yes.
mean, obviously it was designed for the makeup artist, the creative, the artist. But now it's really great because I have artists that are messaging me and they're like, oh my God, my clients like love this pocketbook and they're buying it. And they have, and they've supported it. And it's just really great to see that, you know, our industry talent, our clients are seeing the importance of it too. So it's great. I'm just so happy. I can't, I feel so blessed. Like every day I'm like, you know, I pay to that guy up there and I'm just so
Me too.
thankful, you know, because it's you know, it's just definitely everything has been lining up. So I'm really thankful.
I love that. I love that so much. And I'm kind of curious, like, I know you probably spoke about it and talked about it, but what part of the pandemic was it that you were like, I'm going to pivot. This is what I'm doing, create safely. And then the pocketbook, like, what was the timeline? You don't have to give me like the whole thing,
Yeah.
but like, I'm just curious about like, when was that moment, you know?
Well, like I said, I had such a hard time at the beginning, Nicole. I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do with my salon because I had had that for 3 years and I have all clients that I've built for 3 years, right? And I didn't even open my kit. I thought in this time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to like be creative. I'm going to work on my doll head. I'm going to create more curriculum. And I was one, you know, like a lot of Americans and people all over the world where I just was sitting in my room, like binge watching every show.
Yep.
And then finally, it wasn't until I had one of the school directors reach out to me. And then a bunch of artists that I'm close with were like reaching out to me. And I wasn't like I was putting it out there, like, guys, I'm going to help you. It
Yeah.
I must have been putting out some sort of energy of like come and I can help answer questions for you. And it just, April 7th was the day that I pivoted. And I'll
Oh,
remember it forever because I hadn't talked to this school director for over a year. And he just happened to message me and was like, Christy, I need you to come on and be a mentor to my students because they all were in distant learning. And this is what I think we were maybe 4 weeks in already in the
yeah.
shutdown. And I was like, oh my God, this is a sign for me, you know, and I
Mhm.
just wrote it and it just went from there. And then um, through that whole process of like communicating with, I mean, I even had artists coming out to me in Long Beach where I live.
Yeah.
And I would do, because Daiso was like my first, I was like, okay, Daiso is a great resource. It's cheap, it's here in LA, and I can help create a kit for you guys. And I had artists that maybe I just met through the pandemic that were coming over, and I have a huge yard. And I just said, if you want to bring your kit, you can. We can lay it outside and we could go through different things. You're the first
Gosh.
I've shared this with you, like in depth, but yeah, good friends of mine and people that I just met. Um, and I mean, we were like completely shielded and masked.
Yeah.
And I have a Daiso like less than a mile away. And I said, if you want, I could go with you there and I could show you different things and you can choose whatever you want. And I did probably like 15 shops.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Some didn't come to my house. Some just met me at Daiso. And then we
Yeah.
just did social distancing shops. And then I was like, oh my God, I met my friend Rachel, who is a good friend of mine, who was so great at lives like you. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's so incredible with doing all her lives. I need to get out there. And that's where I decided to go on IG Live. And I said, will you do a live with me to talk about best practices and provide resources? And she said, absolutely. because her heart, she's like you, like she's just so grounded. Her name is Rachel Pagan, and she's fantastic, a great makeup artist. And she helped support me on this journey and was aligned with me. And she helped um, me do these lives because I needed that support.
Yeah.
And then, of course, things happen, and she's still involved, but I am solely like, this was my baby, and she supported that the whole way. But that's, yeah, April 7th. And then Pocketbook came probably like shortly after.
That's so incredible. I mean, I obviously sound like you do like believe in that like little whisper inside that like, you listen to this whisper of like something telling you to create this thing, even though you didn't have all the answers, even though you didn't know if it was, going to change the next day or who was going to even tune in. But it
Yeah,
seems like,
I just followed my heart. And honestly, like, I think this effect, like the pandemic affected me on such a personal level that I can't even like really understand right now. Like, I'm just like, because for me, I was like, I'm so new to Instagram and social media. I don't have a huge, even on my personal, I don't have a huge following. And there was that fear of like, are people like, who, people don't even know me? Like, are they gonna take me seriously? Like, who, and it's just a true testament again. And I just go back to it. Like, if you just authentically share your gift, and I'm not saying that I'm gifted, I'm an expert, but there is something that I've worked, my whole life, um, building and educating myself, and I truly love it. I love helping people. I love researching infection control. I love connecting the dots. And if I didn't have the answer, I wanted to direct people, because that was a lot of the time, Nicole. Like, people were like, Chrissy, what about this? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me find out.
oh, I
And
love
then
that.
researching, I called every week. I called the health department in LA.
Really.
Yeah, I called the mayor's office and spoke to his secretary. And this was during the time where they weren't getting as many like incoming calls, because it was still early. And I was
Yeah.
talking to her every week. I would call her and I was like, so what's the latest update with makeup artists?
I love
'Cause there's
that.
no regulations. And so I would just share like everything that I researched, because it was overwhelming, I think, for a lot of the community. They didn't know where to
I'm
begin.
still overwhelmed. I'm still
Yeah, me
overwhelmed.
too. Yeah, because it's changing like every time.
Constantly. Mhm.
So I wanted to also, aside from education through community, I wanted to provide resources that I was aligned with and knew were providing great information. So on my link tree, you'll see a bunch of people that I've found and researched, and a lot of it pertains to Los Angeles, California, like in terms of all the regulations, but the standards are pretty high. So comparatively to the rest of the country. So I thought this would be a really great like foundation, to
Yes,
kick off your best practices. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
it does. It really does. It seems like I mean, obviously I knew you put in a lot of work, but I had no idea that you were constantly calling and,
Um,
checking up and like creating this relationship with, all of these people who had a little bit closer, like, like finger on the pulse of what was going on.
yeah, I mean, it was, and I would post it like the minute I would find these links and I would talk to someone, I'd be like, okay, guys, I talked to the LA Health Department and this is what,
I
and
love that.
I would put it up, and if I found a training that somebody was doing specifically with makeup, I would throw it up. And I was really just searching everything I could that was the highest standard, you know.
I love that because I mean, honestly, like I was using everything you were putting out as a resource because I just felt like, honestly, I loved where you were coming from, but also the information was just so relevant and it was changing all the time. And you and Create Safely were always just, here's the latest that I have, here's the latest that this. And I love that because I mean, it was changing so much. And instead of being like, I don't know what's going on, I give up, like you constantly evolved with it. And it just seems like you said, you came from a place of love and education. So as much for all of us, it was overwhelming. We were just like, what's going on? And you were just so calm in the storm of it and just kind of giving us the real time information as it was rolling out. And I just think that that's like, I don't think you give yourself enough credit for what you were doing, still are doing, and continue to do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that, because sometimes I know it's so great to hear the feedback, because, I just want to make sure that I'm making an impact. And but yeah, it's been an incredible, incredible journey. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that and here was the other thing too. I remember my second IG Live. And because my whole thing was about sharing, reposting everyone's artist shares. That's what I call them, artist shares, because it was about sharing, right? And I remember saying in the last, I think it was the second IG Live, and I told them, because people had questions like, what else are you gonna, what other content are you gonna create? And like, and at the end of the day, I was like, this platform is the community's. It's not mine, it's theirs. And they're the ones that are creating the content. I'm just trying to set a standard of what I am doing personally. And if someone takes one, if not everything, amazing, as long as I can. And you don't have to follow. I mean, we have people that just come by and say hi and then they exit. And
Yeah.
it's really for anyone that's whether they're getting started, haven't started, or veterans. And I mean, there's something positive for somebody on here. And all the stories will always live on the highlights. So if people that are joining Create Safely that are new, um, I've probably got about 20 tabs of highlights throughout the year of just tons of artist shares
I love
of
that.
kit condensing, kit prep. And it's amazing because I created what I'm sure you're familiar with my 3-step technique. And the
Yes.
number 2 is practice. And through their sharing, they were practicing like everything they needed to do so that way they could feel confident about going out there and working.
Yes,
So,
so true. Actually, that's on my list. Would you mind just briefly talking about the 3-step technique?
yeah, of course. So, 3-step technique evolved from previous makeup curriculum, and then I changed it with the pivot. And I wanted to create a simple way and a simple approach of navigating creating safely. So, step one is knowledge. So, do the research, talk to colleagues, go online, um, take trainings, which I know a lot of people were doing. Get the information that you're aligned with, because there's tons of different trainings and disinfectants and things out there. And then number 2 is practice, like put it into action. Start looking at your kit, like assessing what it is that you need based off of your knowledge. So one of the things I talked about is kit, like calling your changes not changes but upgrades,
Oh, I like
because
that.
we've already, I mean, I would like to say that most of us were operating at a high level of hygiene, as makeup artists. Some weren't, but it's okay. Like now, that's the silver lining. Like, let's just get there, right?
Yes.
But I think identifying like what it is that you need to upgrade, because you're leveling and elevating your service now, because you've already been doing these things. You're conscious of hygiene, but now look at certain things based off your knowledge that you need to add. So do you have everything in your kit that's porous? And which most of us don't. I mean, we carry a lot of different things that are non-porous.
Mhm.
So it's just finding a way to make sure that you're sounding more elevated. So when clients ask you, like, what changes have you made to your business?
Yeah.
Well, the upgrades that I have made, um,
Ooh, I love that.
yeah, my upgrades that I've made for my safety standards to ensure that safety is my number one priority is da 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 da. So then once you've done that, you've practiced your setup. And I can't tell you, that was like the most amazing thing for me is like everyone showing their setup.
Yes.
And it was hard because people were like, oh my God, I know that a lot of people were like, oh my God, I'm having kit envy. Like everyone's like, oh my God, that setup looks amazing. I need to get my,
Sisters.
you know, but it was a good thing, and I think one thing that I always reminded is like, make sure that you don't go and buy an entire kit. Like look and see what you have and then add the upgrades that you need, you
Yes.
know, and
And it
then
was hard during the pandemic though, because I mean, there was nothing else to do except go like, I need that, I need that, I need that. I literally have a box of all the things that I was like, I need that I don't need right this second. But I'm so happy I have them because I got called for a random job and I was so grateful to have all of this on standby that I was like, okay, here we go. We got
yeah,
it right here. So it's so true. But I do love that you say that because I feel like during the pandemic, all of us were like, can't control anything, buy all the things. That's the
I
only thing I
know.
can control.
But what's crazy? It was almost like, it's like a retail therapy thing too. I think
Yeah.
people
Oh,
got
yeah.
joy out of it, but at the same time, like we're not, not all of us are working. So guys, remember, just really monitor your money, you're spending and assess what you have first. And then the last one is commit. I think that's the most, I mean, they're all really important, but the commitment is the most important because 1 and 2 are not going to make any difference if you don't commit to it every day. And that is what, from an education standpoint, from the curriculum, it's the safety standards. Creating a safety standards checklist is part of your commitment. Commitment to you to remind yourself, when I set up, this is what I need to do. When I clean up, this is what I need to do. In between clients, this is what I need to do. And setting the tone for your business. Creating a safety standards checklist for your clients so they know exactly what to expect to ensure that safety is your number one priority. So if you can create those things and practice all these things, and it's not just with makeup, use this 3-step technique for any new thing you want to add in life, and it will hopefully keep it so it's not so overwhelming.
That. I love that so much. I was just curious to what you're seeing on set. I know you've been working recently, and what like the latest things you're seeing for makeup or for production. I don't know, anything that you're seeing that's interesting that could maybe help some people.
Yeah, well, that's a really great question because I think when we talked about prepping in the beginning of last year until now, I've definitely pivoted a lot of the stuff I did add in terms of kit upgrades. Um, it's not that I'm not using them, but I have changed and realized now that I've worked through it that I may not need certain things, which brings me to working on set. Recently, I worked on a movie that shot for, believe this or not, they shot a feature film in less than 2 months, which is
What?
crazy. We're like, okay, this is the new normal. We're shooting a
Seriously?
feature in less than 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
So I think what you're seeing now is a lot of movies are reducing the amount of time that they have with productions working to mitigate risks. So because the longer you shoot, the more chances you have of infection and stuff like that. So this was my first feature film, believe it or not. So it was a really big deal. I had the greatest opportunity to become the department head for hair, and
Congratulations.
first feature. And I was like, okay, I've done a lot of commercials, music videos, red carpet. And so anyhow, I definitely wanted to know what the safety standards were. What do they have in place? And what I'm seeing with my production and then with most movie productions and film and TV is that they are testing. They're not doing if they're doing rapid testing, they're doing PCR.
Okay.
And if you're not familiar with PCR, um, I'm sure if you guys have heard of the makeup standard, definitely check them out. They've got a lot of science-backed information. You can Google PCR, but the PCR test is the nasal test, and that has been proven the most effective in terms of its results. So they were doing that with us 3 times a week. And then there were other productions that were testing every single day, which is
Like on site? On site?
yeah, on site. Everything was on site. And here I want to just share this with you because it's really interesting. So you have a film that's and a show that's testing 5 days a week, PCR testing. And then you have my show that was filming or testing 3 days a week. COVID officer, we didn't have hand washing stations on this one, but we had hand sanitizers.
Okay.
So they were put everywhere. Because a lot of the things that you're going to see and which you've seen in your states too, a lot of it's recommendation. So a lot of the protocols are recommended. I think the ones that are always across the board, like law, is you got to wear a face mask. And if you're near talent, you have to wear a face shield. But believe it or not, the face shield is a recommendation.
Really?
It's really crazy. So even in Los Angeles, so if you are somebody, and tell me if I'm going off topic, but I think it's important to know this part of it because it's interesting. If you're working in a salon environment and you have health issues, so like I have asthma, and it's hard to breathe with a face shield and a mask on, our governor says that you can wear a face shield, no mask, but the face shield has to be covered underneath
Okay.
completely. But I'm like, who makes that?
How? Yeah, I was gonna say how. I mean, like I have the Z shield that sits on your neck and goes up this way, but still, I feel like how. I mean, unless you wear like a big like scarf or a bandana, but I'm
Well,
like, how do you do that?
exactly. So I was like searching. I'm like, okay, I need to find this thing because it is really hard for me to breathe with
Yeah.
a KN95 and then a face shield for a long
Yeah.
period of time. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that bit of information. I have yet to see any of that created, so we'll see. But I learned a lot of different things on that feature because it was because of all the research I was doing. This production that was testing every single day had positive COVID cases
Really?
constantly. The one that I worked, we didn't have any, like zero, and we were doing 3 times a
Interesting.
week. So it's really interesting. And what I've heard so far too is there hasn't been anyone that has contracted COVID, at least what I've in my area from makeup artists or hairstylists. Yay!
Yay!
You know why? Is because we are taking every precaution.
That's good.
And the other thing that I've learned too, and again, I was already working and doing photo shoots. I did some press prior to this feature, and I was doing bridal, which I don't ever really do, but that was the first thing that was coming back.
Yeah.
And I love bridal too. Um, but because I've been, and then working in the salon, but because I had done all of that practice and then everything before I started working, the future, I felt, even if they didn't have the standard that some people would feel like they needed,
Mhm.
I felt that I could control my environment. And that's what I've been trying to tell everybody now. What I've learned from the beginning of last year and up until now is that just to remind everyone that what we do, we can only control what we can control in our environments, because we're not doctors, we're not, you know, we're not in the medical field where we work in a sterile work environment. And even in those environments, they're not 100% sterile. But that would be something I would always remind the community is um, it's a sigh of relief, because that's what I was thinking. Like, oh my God, I'm a doctor now and I need to like, but
It
the
feels like
reality
it
is,
sometimes
yeah,
with all the PPE and
sure,
the
sure.
everything.
But the reality is if if you release, you know, release that extra stress that you have to work like a doctor, because you're not a doctor, um, it'll make the experience better. And I think it's all about just going and doing it. So I think once you start working in it and you get comfortable with your best practices and your workflow, the workflow is like the most important thing, is identifying your workflow, because that is what is going to help you mitigate risks. And so
Mhm.
I felt comfortable with the workflow I had. I didn't focus on everything else that was happening around me, like in terms of what the grips were doing or
Yeah.
what. Um, I just focused on 6 feet around me, my kit, myself, washing my hands, and my clients. I mean, I every time I was with my talent, I was sanitizing my hands and I was taking care of them too. I was like, here's some hand sanitizer for you as well.
I love that. It's
You
extending the
know,
service. Mhm.
exactly. And I think that we just have, and that's what's really helped me survive. You know, and I test regularly now, even though I don't work on a film.
Mhm.
Um, I
That's good.
test 3 times a week just to do it.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just, I mean, because it's like, as a lot of my friends say, knowledge is power. So, I mean, just to know,
it's
just
so true.
for living day to day life, that's really great that you're doing that.
Yeah. And I think the biggest change, that was the biggest learning opportunity for me going back to work from the beginning of the year. But the biggest change is really just wearing the PPE and the masks and the
Mhm.
and losing that you know, that energy that you get with like facial expressions and like talking to people and hugging, and you know, that part of it is so different. But I think what I've been able, if this could be helpful for everyone out there, is what I've been trying to do now is if I do meet a new client, um, I'm very far away. I will pop my mask off for like 2 seconds and I will
And just like,
smile and introduce myself.
I love that. I think that's so special because that's definitely like the one thing that I definitely miss is just, the energy exchange of like meeting someone and working with new people and other creatives and just that flow. And I don't
Yeah.
know. And like you said, facial expressions and stuff. And I feel like that's so much of who we are as artists and in people. And it's just hard not to be able, just be all locked up and they're like,
No,
who is
it's
that?
yeah. And And it's just, people ask me like, are you used to it yet? And I'm like, I'm used to the wearing of it, but I'm not
Mhm.
used to the, like it's just every time I work, I'm like, I feel like I'm in the movie.
Exactly. It's like,
Yeah, I feel like I'm like on ET, like I'm like, am I part of the production right now? Like, but you have to, like, you really have to have the humor in this all,
totally.
taking it serious, but you've got to like find the humor in it. And you have to realize too that everyone is at a different level. Everyone has a different perception of how this has affected them. So you have to be sensitive to that and try not to take things personal when you do meet people on productions that are having a harder time or maybe not having a hard time, thinking this is like, it isn't real, and
Yeah.
just trying to like focus on you. And if it's through getting oils, I mean, I do a lot of oils. I do a lot of doTERRA like oils because my
Ooh,
sister
nice.
gives them to me, but I do breathe a lot because it helps me with my asthma. So I'll put a little of that like in my fingers like this during breaks,
Oh my
just to
gosh, I
give me
love that.
calm. Do lavender oils, spray your face during breaks,
Yes, that's so smart to do little things like that to just kind of give yourself a break, even if you can't physically walk
Yeah.
off set or go like, somewhere that is secluded. I think that's so awesome and special
Yeah.
to take time for yourself. I
Well,
think
that's
that's
the,
something we forget as makeup artists. We're
yeah.
always so go, 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 especially with these masks on. That's just a lot.
We're just alone a lot. Like every
Yeah,
day, Nicole, I was like, all right, guys, see you back from lunch. And like everyone just goes to their car,
that's so
you know?
crazy. Yeah.
And and that was the other thing too that I had to like remind other artists that were on the show with me, like that were stressed because people weren't probably doing or practicing at the level that they feel is necessary. And I would just have to tell them, like, you just like we're all like you just have to believe that everyone really wants to work and no one wants to get this production shut down. We're
Yeah,
just everyone needs once they're just so happy to create. No
so
one wants
true.
to have all this shit on, you know what I mean?
No, I know. It's like it's a lot. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time I went back to work with all of it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. I oh my gosh, like pulling your hair back is real. I did not realize I was sweating. My back of my hair was sweating. I couldn't see anything with the shield. I was like, so it's so important, like what you said, of just finding your flow and like committing to that and knowing that that's how it's going to, how your workflow is going to go throughout,
Yeah.
the process because it gets confusing because everything's all over the place and new places. But I think the one thing that does really help keep organized is the pocketbook because you can see that, you can see everything in it, you can grab
Yeah.
it and have everything you need right there. Understanding your workflow
Yeah.
but I was not prepared. I was like all over the place. I mean, I was prepared, but I just wasn't prepared of how different, just,
It's
sweating and then
yeah.
you're not breathing and then you're not talking because you're just like, I don't know what to do. I'm wearing a mask and a shield and you don't want the shield to fog up. It was crazy.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of emotional and physical because like I don't know for if you are like me, but I loved getting ready and like getting my hair done
Yes.
and my makeup done for my work.
Yes. It's like part of the
Enjoy it.
process.
Yeah, like just getting ready, and so um yeah, the self-care, just going back to just, and then like you said, practicing so that way it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Yes.
Um, but just it's the other thing too, because there's a lot of controversy, I know, and I won't open this up, but about mask wearing and things like that and how it affects other people that are wanting to kind of venture into our industry. But I'm a rule follower.
Me
I've
too.
always been very square, like this Zoom screen.
Yep.
I don't really go outside, but I just think for people that are wanting to go into the industry, my advice, if you see, people that are mentors to you that maybe aren't following the rules, just make the decisions that are going to be smart ones for yourself and your livelihood. Because it's unfortunate you can't control what everyone is doing out there.
Mhm.
Um, but the thing that you can control is the decisions that you make and what you're going to do with that information. So
I love that because cutting corners doesn't get anyone anywhere. It's just gonna,
no,
take things time longer. It's gonna get things shut down. I mean, so like you said, just having, you can control your decisions. And I guess the biggest thing too is that we see so much of what other people are doing, and that, you know, you just got to find what works for you and just stick to your own instead of worrying about what other people are doing or that they're
Yeah.
doing this and this is so
Yeah.
wrong. It's like, no, just stay, like you said, in your 6 feet,
Stay in your
take care of
lane.
your client. Yeah, stay in your lane. I'm like, oh, I love that so much. I love that so much. And then
Yeah.
just one last little question. I was just kind of
Yeah.
curious, we could toss it in.
Sure.
I, I mean, I don't know if it's like, if we even need to put it in here, but I'm just kind of curious on your thoughts of like, you know, so much of our industry was very like, hey, are you available? Can you do this right now? And I was kind of curious on what your thoughts and take on that were for right now. Like, you know, if you get this call of like, hey, can you be here in 20 and your kit's not together? What are your thoughts? Or if it is together, I mean, do you believe that this is still able to happen of like the quick, are you available?
It just happened to me recently, so I'm glad that you asked this question,
Yes.
because it is still happening. People are still reaching out, and the great news is that I can share with you is I'm not working as much, because I choose not to, and because the work's not there. So you guys, some people are busy working, and I'm so happy for you, but a lot of us are still, it's still really quiet. Um, so I just make sure that during that time, I have my kit is like, because every day it's like not like clean and disinfected.
Yes.
Um, but there are times when I have been called. It's only been a handful of times where it's like, are you available like 3 hours from now?
Yeah.
And my kid is ready. And I just say no, you know?
Yeah, it's a
Um,
mental, I think it's an emotional and mental thing. And I'm asking because I just got a call on Thursday and they were like, can you do this? And there was enough time, but I was in the other side where I haven't worked since, I'll be honest, I haven't worked since probably September. And I had my kit cleaned, but it was like I took it all apart and it was all in boxes because I was like, I'm focusing on some other things at the moment. And, you know, when the time is ready, I'll work on my kit. Big mistake, people. So I got this call and I was very hesitant about taking it because like you were saying, I've been very selective about what I'm saying yes to, because it's not just, can I do the job and am I available? Yes, I'm clearly available and can do the job, but emotionally what it takes, the time to prep your kit to make sure it's sterile to a level and a standard that you approve of is
yeah.
so much more than what people and, you know, production thinks, you know, where it's just like, well, you're available, come on, like you could do it, right? And it really does take a toll on just getting, like, I've worked on my kit once before for like day and a half, 2 days to get it to where I wanted it to be, because I just wanted to feel safe and comfortable in my own standards of hygiene. And so when I got this call, I scrambled. I had a couple hours. I scrambled and I got it all together, and they ended up not needing me, which was great. So I learned a big lesson of always having my kit ready. But I think just I was kind of curious because it is, right. I mean, do you agree that it is kind of like emotionally taxing to get yourself prepared to do
Oh
just
my
these quick
God.
jobs?
Well, yeah. Well, that was like, I think last week when I had gotten added, like that job that
Yes.
came up. Oh, wait, no, actually. So that was okay because I had time to prepare. It was the
Yes.
week before I had a shoot. And the makeup artist didn't show up. So in the morning time, and I do makeup as well. And I was just booked for hair. And I was like, yeah, I would love to do makeup because but then I didn't realize, like, wait a minute, is your kit ready? Like,
Exactly. It's like,
no, are you ready, Christy? And then I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm ready. I can do this. And I had my kit ready. But when I got there, I was like, wow, like it was to do both, combo hair and makeup.
mhm,
I hadn't done that in like months, like both.
yes.
And so it was really, I started like having anxiety a little bit,
Yeah.
because and my anxiety reacts in my asthma. And so I was like coughing, and then I was like, oh my God, these people are going to think I have COVID. You just think about all these
Yeah.
things, and then you're like, oh my God, I got to clear my throat. And
Exactly.
by the end of that day, I kid you not, I was so tired,
I bet.
exhausted, and I was only there and I loved every minute of it. I mean, I was enjoying myself. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm creating, but I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
It's
And
emotional.
it's crazy because it's like our department, people don't realize like how much we have changed in the way that we work,
Yes.
and the extra steps. Yeah, it's crazy. Like when you think about it, we did these things before, but adding the PPE and then adding the fear of like, am I going to catch this? Am I going to give it to my client? Is
Yes.
so emotionally and physically draining. And then I came home and I spent my 2 hours of my day cleaning and
Mhm.
disinfecting all of my shit. And I was
It's
like,
intense.
yeah, that has changed. But I think that you're right to your point. It is, and it's normal to feel this way. So I think for people that aren't feeling overwhelmed by it, then I don't know. I'd question whether or not you're really like, have you changed things? Because
Yeah.
you should feel a level of accountability, and that accountability is the stress that you feel.
100%. I totally agree. And like, even like the service aspect of it, of like taking care of your client is already, we don't realize how much we pour into it. And then so we're
Yeah.
also exhausted because of that as well.
Right.
But it is like, I do agree with you that, are you taking what you're practicing and doing it? Because I feel like that is the anxiety and like, the wear that we do carry, because I mean, we're the people who are the closest, connection to these talent. And we, I think that if you aren't a little nervous or stressed, I mean, you could have the cleanest kit in the world, but if you're still be a little like, just because you want to take care of, we're such like caregivers and
Yeah.
people pleasers and just want to just give everyone our all. And I think that that's, just evaluating that when people say, hi, are you available in the next hour? You got to think of the full picture. Yes, it might be an hour shoot or something, or even less, do and go. But
Yeah.
still, like the prep of getting your kit ready, the prep of getting your PPE ready, getting yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically ready for it. It is a lot. And that's, I think, okay to,
Yeah.
kind of give yourself the space to say yes or no. And it's not because, you're not grateful, and it's not because you don't want to work and need the money. I think it's just, respecting boundaries about yourself and your creativity and your mindset and your mental health.
Yeah. And I think too, to your point, is a lot of people are saying no. So, and then lastly to this, because I think it's important, is I think the fear too of like being the crazy one that's in there,
Mhm.
because I think that's that fear is like, you're in, you're the one that's like overly, like, are people going to be like, God, relax, Christy, like this isn't that serious, or like, because that happens too. If,
Mhm.
because again, people, you have to remind yourself, it hasn't changed very much for other departments in our industry,
Yeah,
you know, like grips, like they just have to wear a mask and social distance.
that's amazing.
And it's not their
Maybe we
fault.
should become grips.
I know, right? That's like our next. But and I think again, it just goes back to educating them and letting and not being afraid to share with them, like, hey guys, I need a little bit more time because I got to take extra steps to ensure safety is not my number one priority. And if you say it in a way that that's like that, they're like, cool, Christy, like I get it. So you
Totally.
just have to you got to find the balance, and that all comes through practice, knowledge, and then commitment.
I love that.
You
Christy. Christy,
know.
I love everything that you're doing, and like not just in the makeup industry, but everything that you're doing globally with artists and community, and just coming from a place of education and love. And it really just shines right through, like right out of you and onto all of us. And I think that that's why the community has done so well, because you just pour yourself into it with all the love and education and community that, resides within you. And we just can't thank you enough, because you are making big changes in this industry, in this world. And Create Safely is just such a great community that I'm so grateful to be a part of. And PotKITbook, I mean, it's life changing. I'm going to get it for myself, for my house. I'm like, and like you said, people are using it, their talent are using it. Like, it's just, it goes more than just makeup. So, I mean, the opportunities of organization are endless. So we can't thank you enough for everything that you're doing. And thank
You
you so much for being a part of Get Uplifted as a guest. This
I
is
am
amazing.
excited. Well, I mean, I'm praying and I'm hoping that you would come on my platform,
I would
because
love
you're
to.
doing incredible things too.
Thank you so
And
much.
I just think you're an amazing woman and you're inspiring. I know you've had a lot of great accomplishments recently.
Thank
And
you.
so it's just so great to connect with women like you and men and just people all over the world. And I'm
Yes.
so grateful that I have met you.
Thank you so much. I'm so
And I can't
grateful
wait
I've
for you
met
to be
you.
on if
I
you
can't wait to come on. I'm like, I'm so excited. That'll be so fun. I've always joined these Zooms, and I can't wait to be a part and just share any kind of knowledge that I can, help other people. And I think that that's why this goes for both of us, of just, and everyone out there, coming from a place of serving, creating
Yeah.
a space that even if you don't have all the answers to, you know that there's something that needs to be created because there's something missing, like Create Safely and the Pocketbook. And, I just felt like there needed to be more kindness and uplifting. So Get Uplifting or Get Uplifted became a part. And so I think that honestly, as a takeaway for anyone who's watching this, if there's something that you see that is not existing, or things that you want to put out there that help other people and come from a place of serving, I say go for it. Because I mean, we all have these gifts, talents, and abilities, and kind of just listening to them and seeing where they lead, you have no idea. So let Christy be a testament of what can come from just like something she's been thinking about for the last couple of years, and then when everything comes to a screeching halt, making some amazing pivots, and look at where you are now. It's just incredible.
Oh, thank you so much. You too. And I can't
Thank you,
wait to
girl.
hear more about Uplifted.
I
So
can't wait. Yes, and I will see you on your Zoom. And I can't thank you enough. And where can people find you and follow you and everything?
yeah, so we're at Create Safely on IG. So it's Create Safely, all one word. And then PotKITbook, if you want to give them a follow. I say them. If you want to give us a follow.
I do it too. I'm like, we as
Yeah,
us, we, I'm like, it's just me running this. What am I saying? But
exactly.
it
Exactly.
feels like an us and we kind of thing.
Yeah, because it's our community, right? So we just say we all the time. But PotKITbook is POKITBOOK.
Love
And
that.
please join us. We've got some great education through community. They're free resources with artists that are donating their time to support our community. And it's called Create Safely Collective Chat. And you can sign up. It's free to get all the upcoming events. And then you can also find us on our link tree and get the next Create Safely collective chats.
I love that. I love that. Oh, I'm so excited for the next one. I can't wait. It just feels so
Yay!
good to just sit in and hear all this. So thank you so much again, Christy. And I really appreciate everything that you're doing.
Oh, I'm so happy to finally chat with you.